And we begin the Democrat Party in a complete meltdown over anything and everything on Capitol Hill. Because Chuck Schumer is now claiming if President Trump's one big, beautiful bill passes, it will literally kill us. You just can't make it up. Watch.
One thing, Donald Trump is just lying about the bill. Lying about the bill. Well, here's the "We Are All Going to Die" act.
And that's not all, because House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries now wants to dox the identities of ICE agents for actually doing their jobs and keeping the American people safe. Take a look at this.
Single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identities from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that. This is America. This is not the Soviet Union. We're not behind the Iron Curtain. This is not the 1930s. And every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
But the lunacy and corruption, it doesn't stop there, because we're now learning even more about how the swamp tried to cover up their dirty tricks inside the FBI. As a new report from the Federalist discovered that under prior leadership, the FBI manipulated the case management database called Sentinel, which allowed select agents to conceal evidence pertaining to cases by keyword. What does that mean? It means that some files weren't even searchable. Here's Deputy Director Dan Bongino laying out just what's at stake. Watch.
Obviously has the public corruption portfolio. And yes, if you are a corrupt politician out there, if you are engaged in behavior, you know what you're doing, we're going to find you. I promise. No one is going to get off. The days of selecting and putting your partisan bias on and taking care of your friends, those days are over. You know what, Sean? I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. Well, maybe outside of you and a couple of. I don't care. I didn't come here for the money. I didn't come here to make. I know.
No, you didn't go there for the money. I can tell people that for sure. No, I didn't come here to make friends. I don't give a damn about friends. I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. I got my wife. I got you, and I got a small crew of people. So I don't need any friends. But if you're want
a
friend in D.C., get a dog.
Oh. I don't think you can hear me. Can you hear me?
You're perfect. Thank you for being on the show.
No, thank gosh. Okay, good. You can hear me. Okay. For a second there, the technical difficulties got in the way.
No, all good. So thank you for being on the program. And, to start, could you just introduce yourself to our audience and talk about how you ended up in the crosshairs of massive corruption by the FBI under previous leadership?
So my name is Martha Byrne. I had a long career on a soap opera called As the World Turns, had a lovely career, won a few Emmys, and I met the love of my life when I was 23, named Michael McMahon. He was an NYPD sergeant, detective, very highly decorated, earned 78 medals while he was on the NYPD. We had an amazing life, and he had a terrible car accident on the job in the Bronx, hit a telephone pole at 50 miles an hour, and his career ended. So then he became a private investigator, something he loved to do. And then in 2016, he got a routine call for some asset searches, background checks from a business in New York, Queens. Their client had stolen money of theirs and was hiding it somewhere in New Jersey. So it was a typical case. He hired two NYPD detectives that were retired. He talked to two federal agents about the case in 2016, did everything right, notified the local police when he was doing surveillance, and then he forgot about it. Didn't think about it, had hundreds of other cases in his career. He worked for the Vatican. He was a very sought after private investigator. And then on October 28th, 2020, the FBI came here to our home during a pre-dawn raid and arrested him for violating the FAR Act, Foreign Agents Registration Act, and interstate stalking. Now, he's a private investigator. He was parked on a public street. He was never seen by the subjects. There's no police reports he was seen. Nothing like that ever had happened. So we're like, we're going to fight this. I mean, everything he did by the book, he saved everything. And as many of your viewers know, when you go after the DOJ and you want to fight back is when they double down.
Yeah.
That was in 2020. And it's almost 5 years later. And we went to trial. But during that time, before we went to trial, you're talking about these files. You're talking about the discovery and how they hide evidence or suppress it. And when we got our discovery, it was encrypted. So we would click on a folder, which would go to another folder, another unnamed folder, and then we couldn't open our own discovery. And when we inquired with the prosecutor about that, they said, we have handed over everything we were obligated to do so. Now, if you're talking about a federal case where you're trying to build a defense as a civilian, you know, we're just two people who were living our lives, trying to have a, you know, peaceful life. He's a hero, didn't break any law. Do you know how much that costs to have an attorney look at
terrible.
that every day?
I do.
So, yeah, you know, so it was a way to bankrupt you and punish you. And we said, absolutely not. And we went to trial with what we had, plenty of evidence, but we didn't win one ruling in our favor in 4.5 years. Evidence was left out of trial. The amount of gymnastics that the prosecutors went to make my husband, who was a hero, look like a traitor to the country for a few $1,000s. Like, his career shows he would never, ever, ever betray this country. But if you are innocent, you should be able to fight back and build a proper defense. So when I hear all this stuff about these hiding these files, it makes total sense, because when my husband was able to open up one file, eventually after about an hour, he found evidence from his other cases that he worked on as a private investigator in our files, which, again, totally outrageous. It's shocking. So we went to trial, and he was found not guilty of conspiring with the foreign government for FARA, which is the big charge, which means they couldn't prove it, that he was with a foreign government, but he found guilty of the other three. So he was just sentenced a few weeks ago. And we're trying to get a pardon, obviously, from President Trump. I think this is right in the line of what happened to him about the spying and the overreach and the total violations of your rights. And it's just outrageous, Kimberly. It's outrageous.
I'm sorry for what you have had to go through. It's just absolutely awful. I totally understand and relate on a firsthand basis of what it's like to be, you know, a family subject to lawfare, and, you know, just what's been going on, and just the endless investigations, the endless subpoenas, the endless requests for depositions. They try to kill you, the process is the punishment, and going through all of that. But let's talk a little bit about this, about some examples, you know, falsifying evidence by the prosecution and FBI.
So I'll give you one very egregious example. On day one of trial, the prosecutors put up a photograph that they alleged my husband had taken at a mall. First of all, he was never at a mall. There was no mall meeting. There's no evidence there was a mall meeting between the subject he was following and his elderly father. Never happened. So they put up a picture of the mall, but it was a recent picture, and it had electric chargers for cars. And we went, objection. My husband worked on this case in 2017 of April. There were no electric chargers. But it just went on and on and on. They had no proof of anything that they had alleged about this meeting at the mall. And they created this whole case that my husband had followed this woman to the mall and she thought someone was following her. It absolutely 100% never happened. The data, the metadata showed he was not there. The evidence in his reports that he had given to his client weren't there. So can you imagine, years, they have known. The FBI Newark field office in Red Bank, New Jersey, has known since 2017 April that my husband was innocent. They backed into this case. They had his phone number, they had his contact. He had filed police reports at the local police department when he did surveillance. So it was on record. They could have called him. And Kimberly, my husband has worked on hundreds of cases, including with the federal government, with the FBI while I was on NYPD, and as a private investigator. They knew he would come in if they called him. They didn't want to call him. Instead, they spoke to Chinese agents, the actual criminals, countless times, who lied to them. So, but the falsifying the evidence is, I think, when you put a criminal complaint together, which was the first out of the gate piece of evidence, right, that goes out to the world, and there's false information in there, charges of things that he wasn't even involved in, and we prove it, Kimberly. We show evidence to the prosecutors that over and over again. But even up till his sentencing, they were continuing the same lie to the jury, to the judge, to the world, to the media. And we don't how is that possible? Kimberly, if you have evidence in your hands that you know is false, how can you infer it, which is what they do, lie, let's call it what it is, to a jury? I mean, and Kimberly, no one testified against my husband at trial. The case agent didn't testify. No witnesses testified against him. None. They made up a story based on legal private investigative work and fed it a fantasy to the jury. I mean, I'm shocked. Having been married to a member of law enforcement, a very heroic, very busy, really worked on heavy cases, what I witnessed in that courtroom was absolutely shocking. So when Donald Trump was being charged and going into this courtroom in Manhattan, I said, and I hear what's happening to him, I think that's exactly what happened to us. Yeah. Taking something legal and making it appear even illegal or sketchy or, just funky. It's just wrong. It's totally wrong.
No, yeah. I mean, it is outrageous, but I love your dedication and your loyalty. Such a courageous woman. God bless you for that. And and this is very informative, and our viewers want to hear more about this. It's been recently reported that the DOJ is ghosting files. Talk about that as it relates to your case.
So when you get a discovery, a batch of discovery, when I was writing this book, I started looking at the timeline. We didn't get our first batch of discovery for like 6 months, 7 months, okay? And you're handed over millions of documents. So they overwhelm you with they
bury you in
work.
paper, yeah.
Completely. So when we would read 302s, which are in interviews of witnesses, and we see something that's very, very helpful to my husband, they won't let that in, okay? That's one. We had to fight for months and months and months to get interviews that we knew had happened, and we knew they would be helpful to my husband. And the prosecutor's response was, well, we don't believe that it's Brady material, so we're not going to give it to you. So let me people understand. Prosecutors decide if they think the evidence is helpful to the defendant. Now, if that's not backwards, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a very big violation, though. That's a Brady violation if they do not turn over evidence that could be exculpatory in nature. Cases can be overturned based on a Brady violation. It's outrageous. I mean, I'm a former prosecutor, okay? I turned over everything because I just want one outcome, which is justice. And I investigated all my cases very thoroughly. I didn't just rely on the investigator. I did a deep dive on it to decide. Some of my proudest moments as a prosecutor is saying, hey, the people unable to proceed, there's reasonable doubt. I have concerns that this is, a crime has not been committed and or this is not the right individual, et cetera. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be the balanced justice. Defense attorneys have their job, which is to defend the case, but the prosecutors are supposed to be the white hats to make sure that justice is served, okay, and that innocent people do not go to jail. Exactly. And talk to us about how, your husband's case is different from a typical fox hunt case.
So my husband's case, so the fox hunt cases are usually a dissident who has fled China, who is speaking out against the government, the Chinese government, and they send people from China to here to coerce them to go back. That was not the case here. The subject of my husband's surveillance, after his arrest, we started learning more. Because remember, he was arrested 4 years after he had worked on this case. So when he originally was hired, there was nothing on this man. When you Googled his name, one image came up and that was it. But after his arrest, we found out that he was being sued civilly for $30 million in the United States for fraud. He was committed immigration fraud. We were not allowed to talk about that at our trial. He was not a dissident. He was a high-ranking Wuhan official who fled China in 2010. and alleged to have stolen over $120 million, I believe. That was the latest number that I found. We were not allowed to talk about that at trial. So when he took the stand, we couldn't talk about any of his communications with the FBI about his immigration. And, there was this very, very cloak and dagger kind of behavior that we were never allowed to ask the actual alleged victims about why they would want to stay here, first of all, and get this civil lawsuit against them thrown out. So there was a $15 million judgment against them by the time we went to trial, and we were not allowed to ask him about that. So he's not a dissident, and there was no evidence presented at trial. This was a political effort. So my husband worked on a civil matter. So his client wanted him to find homes, real estate, where's the money? So it perfectly lined up to what he was told that he was hired to do. And that information ended up in the civil lawsuit that was filed, but we weren't allowed to even ask the subject about it. So I don't know what's going on here, but I'll tell you, Kimberly, when he testified at trial, this is a former Wuhan official. Not one member of the media covered it. Not one media, not one person. I looked around going, why is this should be topical.
Exactly.
This should be something that people would want to hear about. The media protected him. The prosecutors protected him. The judge protected him. Like I said, I am shocked. So the fact is, this was not a fox hunt case. My husband would never do anything. First of all, if he knew anybody was in harm, he'd be the first guy. He's the guy who ran into the burning buildings. He's the one who took on the gunfire. He would have helped the subjects. He was never asked to do anything like that. But what you have to understand is that fox hunt's a real thing. It's a real concern in the United States. But my husband's role was, they wanted a licensed private investigator, okay? We had 2 other NYPD officers with him. My husband met him at a Panera Bread and at a law firm office, his client. Do you think that my husband, if he's involved in something nefarious, would bring him to a law firm to have a meeting? His client did not want Mike to do anything wrong, illegal. He wanted this civil information. He was very interested in, for instance, a transaction where the subject had, with his real name on it, he wasn't hiding, he had transferred a $2.6 million house for $1 to his sister-in-law. That's a little interesting. But I'll tell you, Kimberly, one thing we did find out recently, there's a book called Fool's Gold that just came out, and we found out the subject Mike was following had donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016 under his real name. Now, if you're fleeing China as a political dissident, you're not donating to Hillary Clinton in 2016 under your real name. So there's a lot of very complex things that go on, but I want you to understand what my husband did was a few days of surveillance, legal PI work, did nothing illegal, makes a few $1,000s and moves on with his life. And they built this case around him, Kimberly. They had guilty pleas from other people that had been involved in nefarious business. They were done. They could have just wrapped it up with a bow and been done, but they went after my family and tried to bankrupt us and put us in danger. These FBI agents, these prosecutors and the EDNY, they left my family vulnerable, Kimberly. If these were bad people, they knew where we lived, they had information. I mean, the obligation to warn us, it's the duty to warn. I'm sure you know about it. Like if you are targeted by a foreign adversary, they have an obligation to warn us. And we've met FBI agents, but former prosecutors who are now out and said they did a terrible, terrible thing by not protecting Americans, but protecting CCP. And I'm sorry. And
why is that?
That is not
really bad.
Well, there's look what's coming out now.
Exactly.
We're learning more what's going on behind the scenes and who's, the prosecutor that was the national security prosecutor who had been with the EDNY for 10 years, who was in charge of these cases, was just relieved of his duties recently. That's a win, okay? Because things slipped through the cracks. Finally. I mean, the lead prosecutor left government right before Donald Trump won the election. He slithered out of there and, ran away because, we know why, obviously. But this is not okay. And we're going to clean this up, and we want to help other people, Kimberly. Like the fact that we are not alone and that we are not the only victims of this spying and looking. And you understand this probably better than anybody. When you find out that your children, you know, like that where they followed and like they've looked at your banking records for 10 years trying to, Kimberly, they couldn't find one thing my husband has ever done wrong. They couldn't find anything. They pulled up a complaint against him from the NYPD from 2000, where a gang member's mother came in and complained about him because I called her son stupid. Her son was recruiting kids at a school. That's what the prosecutors told the court, that made my husband a bad man. Okay, they couldn't find anything.
It must be so distressing. No, you have no peace of mind, waking up in the morning, going to bed at night, so distressed and so upset over this. But don't give up, because justice delayed is not justice denied. Okay?
That's right. That's right.
And God sees everything. He will right the wrongs.
He sure does. Yes, he has. He's been through my whole
talk
path.
about, yes, thanks be to God. So, like, did the FBI ever, like, debrief in any way, like, what was the interaction, you know, with your husband and the FBI? Like, if you can touch on that.
That's another thing. I'm so glad you asked that. If these operations are so dangerous to the United States, the case agent has never spoken to my husband. Nobody has spoken to my husband about this case, to learn, to grow, to protect this security of our country. Very frustrating. And today came out in New York Post, if you'll see it, is that there was an FBI agent who was specialized in Chinese intelligence who said they would have brought them in. Basically, they really missed the mark on this case. That's outrageous. So no, there's been no debriefing. They didn't even speak to the 2 federal agents that my husband spoke to about this case in 2016. They were active agents. They never spoke to them until a year after my husband's arrest. They didn't speak to the NYPD members that were with him until the arrest in 2020.
Terrible.
Do you imagine how much intel we lost by them doing that? Like, what was happening after 16, 17? Spy balloons, Chinese police stations, fentanyl, you know, all these things were going on. Could you imagine if this little Newark field office FBI agents and the EDNY had reached out to learn about these patterns instead of keeping it private and not sharing? And my husband's a 9/11 first responder, okay? He has had 9/11 illness. He is suffering from that. My brother-in-law just passed away from 9/11 illness, a firefighter.
So sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. So devastating.
You. But I'm saying, we didn't share information, Kimberly. If we had shared information back in that day, right? We were supposed to do better. We were supposed to share information so that we could protect our citizens. By them not sharing this information back in 2016, it was not only put my family in danger, it put the entire country in a default position with China. And we can fix it. It will be fixed. And I've been so blessed. You know, I've been blessed by meeting wonderful people in DC and the Oversight Committee, and James Comer's Oversight Committee in October 2024 did a 300-page report on the CCP, and the DOJ got a failing grade because of this case. And they made a point of it, saying Mr. McMahon looks to be should never have been prosecuted, and there's government weaponization here, in their own words. So there's progress, Kimberly, but my husband shouldn't spend 1 second in federal prison when the Department of Justice worked with the CCP for years instead of U.S. law enforcement, including my husband. They protected they picked the wrong side. They picked the wrong side on this one, and that's one of our, if not our biggest enemy. And I don't know how they rectify that in their minds, that's okay. But this administration's not going to do that. And that I know for sure. I know I've already seen the changes. I've already seen it. We've already seen it. Transparency you know, is everything.
You're absolutely right. You know, big picture, let's like share this with viewers. You know, this has obviously been incredibly challenging and distressing on such an insane, extreme level for you, right, and your family. Yeah. Talk to us about that, what the actual personal impact has been. And then, you know, talk to us about, in your, you know, best hopes and wishes and prayers, what does the path forward look like?
It's, you know, when they come to your house in the morning at dawn, my husband always said, if they come to the house, I'm dead. If someone comes at before dawn, I'm dead. And since I was with my husband, the first thing I thought was my son was dead. And the idea that these FBI agents would plan that and coordinate to come to my house and scare my children and traumatize them is something I can't wrap my brain around either, because like I said, Mike would have come in easily. So that trauma that they put upon my children, I will never forgive them for that.
Exactly.
I will never forgive them. And when the world thinks your husband's a traitor to the country and a spy, and you get death threats, and you get people who think that he's this horrible person because the DOJ tells one side of the story and the media says one side, their side, how do you fight back against that, Kimberly? I'm blessed that I have a platform. I'm blessed that I have a following. I'm blessed that I have a foundation of faith. I mean, the Blessed Mother visited me right before this happened in 2020, and I know she was preparing me for this. But we have to stand up when we can, and not everybody can. Not everybody is strong enough. You know, they'll bankrupt you. You know, like you said, it's about $2 million. You know, these cases cost you about $2 million, if not more. Maybe you need 10 lawyers to fight this. But I always wanted to believe that the truth always wins in the end. And our children have thrived. They have thrived. My son is a police officer now. He became a police officer because of this and wanted to honor his father. My daughter's doing great in school and college, and she's here locally in college. And my other son, my middle son, is doing great, doing very, very well, because we're a family unit, and they try to break that up, and they're trying to break it up again. And at my husband's sentencing, the judge said my children would be fine because they're adults. And never mentioned me. Never said what the impact would be on me if I lost. I mean, Kimberly, I've never been away from my husband for 32 years for more than 2 weeks. I mean, the idea of someone deliberately doing that, knowing he's innocent, it's a special kind of dark force that would tear a family apart who's survived this together, who have sacrificed everything to be a family unit, and for the judge to say my children will be fine.
So dismissive and rude.
It's so, my
So
husband,
insensitive
again,
and outrageous.
is a 9/11 first responder. He's had 4 surgeries for his sinuses. He sacrificed his body, his mind, his soul. He's taken on gunfire. He's run into burning buildings. I mean, like I said, he's a hero. And the way the judge just dismissed that, her comment was something like, well, there's an expectation for everybody to be a good person. But I'm sorry, if you have 78 medals and you have sacrificed your whole life.
I've never even heard of anybody with 78 mil. I mean, maybe it exists, but just like take that in and absorb it for a moment about the level of heroism and sacrifice and courage and loyalty and patriotism to the country, to the communities. It's just, it blows you away.
It really does. It's so insulting, and it hurts so. It hurt me every day in court. It just felt like a needle to my heart, because it was what they were saying about him was wrong, and it was a lie. They called him so many horrible. He didn't do anything wrong. He was doing his job, and he not only was doing his job, he was diligent. He did invoices for cash. He did surveillance reports. He saved everything. Thank God he had saved everything when he was arrested, so we could put the timeline together. There's no crime here. I don't know what they're talking about. And as you said, if they show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
Yeah.
And, that is what, but I still don't understand why they did this to him, because they didn't need to do it. And the amount of taxpayer dollars, I mean, I wonder how the Americans feel that they used your money to destroy a hero and his family. For what?
Awful.
I mean, we're not any safer from China. I can tell you that. We will be. But this was an optics case. But to destroy someone, and how could they look at his career as a husband, father, and just think that he would ever do anything? But Kimberly, that FBI case agent never even called him.
It's outrageous.
Never even. Yeah, and there were 2 people who worked in the same field office as this agent down in New Jersey, who my husband had worked with in the JTTF, which is in the same building. He never spoke to them. So how could you be in the same building with two men who know my husband probably better than anybody and not speak to them and inquire? Got this case, this guy, this guy, never spoke to them. Still has never spoken to them. It's backwards and it's wrong. And I hope that there's some accountability finally. Kimberly, there's got to be accountability. If there's not going to be change, and you can speak to this very well, the idea that they can say, I believe this happened, or I infer, but I will back up what you said, because I've met former U.S. attorneys who are highly respected, and they said to me, we always take out the innocent because we want to win the case. If this person is innocent, it hurts us in the long run because we're not going to win. And the exact opposite happened here. Opposite.
It's just very perplexing and very disturbing, but you can't give up. You'll see this through.
Never.
So tell people, about your book, where they can go to get more information, how they can help, anyone you want them to write, etc. This is your moment.
Thank you so much. So I wrote the book in the interest of justice. It came out today. I wrote it in 6 weeks to document this case for my children, for my family, for the world. It was gut-wrenching. It is raw. It is all the emotions, but it's also kind of a playbook as to what happens in these cases. And I had to do it. I just had to do it, get ahead and get it done. It's been, sometimes you are called to do these things for other people. And I feel like that's what Mike and I are both going to help other people. We've already started helping other people who are in these situations. You can go to the pipehitterfoundation.org, pipehitterfoundation.org. There's a whole page on Michael McMahon. That's Eddie and Andrea Gallagher's foundation, who've been wonderful for us. Eddie and Andrea are amazing people.
God bless them.
And they're amazing. And I know you can write to the White House on the site, whitehouse.gov, and it says contact, and then just put in the subject, Michael McMahon, urgent, is due to turn himself in on June 16th. So we have filed a pardon package with Ed Martin and with Alice Johnson, and we're praying it's being considered soon, so that we can put this chapter behind us and move on to continue our work of service to others in the future. And we're so grateful. Thank you, Kimberly, so much for having me on and doing this. It's the awareness that we need and to get the word out. But I think if people read the book, they'll be inspired, they'll be anchored by what's happened, but they'll be educated and hopefully inspired by the end. Hopefully when they finally read the book, that faith is maybe it will rebuild your faith. If you've lost your faith, which a lot of people do in this time of the world, this book may bring you back to your faith, which again will help you in the future, as you know.
Praying for you and your family and your husband. How is he? He must be. It's very difficult because he wants to be strong and there for you and the kids, and then he's going through this, personally. He probably feels so awful that this is obviously even transpiring because he wants to be there to support all of you as the head of the family, as the father and the husband. Give us a little glimpse maybe about, what he's thinking, what he's feeling right now.
Betrayal. He feels totally betrayed by the justice system.
A system that he fought to protect and honor every single day when he woke up in the morning and went to bed at night with 78 medals.
Exactly. And he feels broken. I always say, I miss the person that was before, but he's still the same person. He just needs to be, his heart needs to be filled again with positivity. And he knows he's fighting for other people. He knows if he didn't fight, if he took a plea deal, he'd be lying. He'd be perjuring himself.
I get it.
Exactly.
It's on principle.
Right?
It's on principle.
Exactly. We can make more. We can work. You can't get your integrity back. The world will always Google his name and think he's this horrible person. So,
yeah, but you're
and he's
there to
not.
manifest and to show the world that that is not the
Yes.
case, and to bear witness to the true man of character and integrity that he is, and that you are, and that your family is. And I think the
Thank you.
facts, they rise up about the truth, about what transpired, about an FBI agent that never even spoke, contacted, your husband. And it's really not any good, solace per se, but I will say this. God, as you know, doesn't give you more than you can handle. So you guys are bearing witness and faith to standing up so this doesn't happen to anybody else. And it seems like,
That's right.
obviously, and it is like a dark and difficult time, but, you wake up tomorrow and you've got the stomach for it, and you will fight
Yes.
again. And you will see
And I
this
will tell you
through for
that, too.
justice for your family.
My 3 children went to my husband a few weeks ago and said, "We are so proud of you for standing up. We're so proud of you for fighting back." As a parent,
It's an incredible
to
lesson
hear that,
for them.
it sure
Inspirational.
is. It sure is. And they're amazing children, and I love them so much. And
Well, God
we
bless
are
them.
surviving. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so
And
much.
look, God
He's-
put the two of you together, and God made sure that he had a courageous and strong and smart and talented woman by his side,
Thank you.
as his, shield, and he carries the sword. So you guys will, persevere, God willing, I really believe it, because I honestly do believe that at the end of the day, if you keep fighting and you believe and you have your faith, which you do, that you will see this through, and you will both experience joy back in your hearts.
I believe that. We still laugh and we still love each other. And we've spent every day together now for the last 4.5 years. And he's my best friend. And I love spending time with him. So to me, he's such a good person, and we need more people like that in the world. He needs to be back to doing what he is so good at. He had a case where he had a young man who was falsely accused of murder, and he did it pro bono because he knew the kid was this innocent kid was innocent, and he got him exonerated. I mean, he did his own work on his own to save this kid's life.
Good deeds. And, let's see what happens. But I'll tell you, even just preserving the record and any transcripts, etc., even at any sensing, believe me, it's very important to get people like that to come forward and say all the good things, about him. You have that in the history books.
We sure do. We sure do. I mean, the letters that were written to the judge are so incredibly powerful.
It matters.
Yes, it does. It does, because that's who he is. They didn't have to do that.
No, and for people who want to write about it going forward and just talking about his character, his integrity, the measure of the man, that's very important. That's something we documented, would be in articles, etc., to show. So it all matters.
It all
really
matters.
does.
Every moment of the fight matters, because you don't know how it's going to come back in the long run.
Absolutely.
For sure.
God bless. I love this. I love your fighting spirit and your optimism. Never give up, never surrender. Just keep pushing forward. God sees everything. You are not alone in this. Okay?
No, I know that. I pray every day before my feet hit the ground. I say my grateful list, and I say, just put me on the right path and I will follow. And he has not let me down yet.
God bless. It's amazing. I love your faith. I really do. And it's really brave of you. We really appreciate it. Sharing a very personal story with us. We appreciate it. We hear you, and we pray for you and your family.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
All right, keep us posted.
Thank you so much.
You're always welcome to come back on the program, okay?
Thanks so much.
All right, be well.
Bye. Thank you.
And coming up, a big hearing on Capitol Hill yesterday. We're going to break it all down with energy policy expert Daniel Turner. We love him. And in the meantime, also be sure to check out the 1775 Coffee Company. We talk about it all the time. Don't compromise on taste, quality, or your values. And 1775 coffee is brewed to perfection, crafted with precision, and built on patriotism. The farm-to-cup process means there is quality, authenticity, and sustainability from start to finish. All the beans are ethically and exclusively single-sourced. So try 1775 coffee today. Go to 1775coffee.com/kg for 15% off your first order. Now, yesterday, the House held a hearing on massive abuse and fraud inside the Biden EPA to the tune of billions of dollars in a green slush fund giveaway. Here's some sights and sounds from yesterday's hearing. Take a look.
Turner, is it true that the Biden senior climate policy advisor, Jai Wise, directed $5 billion to a coalition for green capital?
Yes.
And let's point out, she worked for the Coalition for Green Capital, right? She previously worked for them.
Yes.
So she sent money to the organization that $5 billion. Is that not blatant corruption, Mr. Turner?
And not only that, sir, $5 billion is very difficult to spend. $5 billion is an absurd amount of money. We heard a congresswoman talk about the jet that President Trump got. That was $400 million. This is $5 billion. It's impossible to spend $5 billion ethically.
Yeah, to put that in context, I remember being in the state of Missouri, and Missourians, at one point, whenever I was a lawmaker, we spent $5 billion for all the school districts in the state of Missouri. Okay, so they funded every school district, the state funds. That was $5 billion. How much money did the Biden administration give specifically to Rewiring America initiative, where Mrs. Abrams was brought on as a senior counsel?
Approximately $2 billion.
$2 billion. So let me get this straight. Progressive loyalists like Abrams and other senior admin officials left the admin and feathered their nest on their way out with our taxpayer dollars, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And there he is, a favorite of this show. The man you saw in that clip. Power the Future founder, Daniel Turner. Thank you so much for being back on the program.
It's always great to be on with you, Kimberly. Thanks so much for having me back.
That was a great moment. You're on Capitol Hill just yesterday. Tell us, why you were there, and we saw a little bit about what you revealed.
Well, the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed in 2022 when the Democrats controlled the White House and both houses of Congress, it appropriated hundreds of billions of dollars, all hiding behind combating climate change and climate justice, et cetera. But all it was a slush fund that then Democrats could give to their friends. And that's exactly what they did with it. The conversation I had there with the congressman, we're talking about billions of dollars with they didn't build an airport, right? They got $5 billion to do what? Raise awareness. So obviously the money was going to be stolen, and the money was going to be given back to Democrat campaigns, because this is what happens when you give Democrats the power of the purse. And so I think Lee Zeldin has done an amazing job at the EPA of freezing this money and clawing it back. President Trump deserves a tremendous amount of credit for fighting this good fight. But Congress needs to actually get their comeuppance, because they allowed this to happen, right? They allowed it to happen.
Yeah, how does the swamp keep getting away with this massive, and it's so distasteful to me, waste of funds that go to these left-wing special interests? How deep does this all go? And quite frankly, how do we stop it?
Yeah, the laws have to change, and that's what my organization is working on for the next year and a half, while we are assured that we still have both chambers of Congress. The laws have to change, that you can't just create a group and then go to the White House and, because you know the people there, get a $5 billion nameless grant. If this was a Department of Transportation grant, for example, if you were building a bridge, you'd have to put up some sort of bond, right? You have to prove that you're going to deliver for the grant you're getting. But if you're just going to combat climate change, they just write you a check and then assume you're going to use the money wisely. And we know they're not. All that money is going to get funneled back to Democrat campaigns, to Democrat operatives. So the grift has to stop. Biden set a terrible precedent on a lot of things. But this was one of the most egregious. And it's because they had the full power of the purse and they abused it. Not surprising, but we can't let it happen again.
Can Congress, claw back, from this green slush fund? Because this is what really irritates people and, quite frankly, pisses them off.
Yeah, I think some of it can be clawed back. A lot of these grants were supposed to be over time, and so they can stop future payments. But I think what Congress has every right to do is say, how much did we give you? 500 million? Okay, walk us through how you spent that. Right? If you were donating to any charity, you have that right to ask that. If you were running a business and you had investors to the tune of X number of dollars, they would want to know, how did you spend the money? But somehow when you are on the left and you're combating climate change, you just get money from the taxpayers and you expect no accountability. The hostility that I had with the Democrat members of Congress is because of this exact reason. They know this money was making its way back to their campaigns and to their friends and to their operatives. They don't want to get caught, so they put up a lot of bluster and fight, and you don't care about children and all that crap. But they're just hiding their tracks.
Now, your group, Power the Future, expressed concerns that over 6 of the Biden administration's executive actions signed by the auto pump, like just take that in for a moment, related to climate policy. These should be deemed, right, null and void. Yeah. What did you find?
100% null and void. Yeah, we looked at some of the environmental executive orders that President Biden ostensibly signed, right? Look, President Trump early on started talking about the auto pen and started asking questions, who was president, et cetera. Then the Tapper book came out, and then all these White House staffers were saying, yeah, we were really calling the shots, and yeah, Jill Biden's chief of staff was really the one in charge. There were even phrases like, we were willing to do undemocratic things for the sake of keeping Joe Biden in power. That's a pretty damning admission, and they say it without any problem. So we looked at executive orders and said, look, it's very simple. This is the EO. It was signed by AutoPen. The White House put it out, but we need some instance of Joe Biden in his own voice, in first person, talking about it. And these are huge EOs. For example, the ban on the export of liquid natural gas. Right? That was huge. That bankrupted companies and small businesses. It fueled Vladimir Putin's war, because since we stopped exporting natural gas, they bought from Russia through intermediaries to bypass the Russian sanctions. I mean, this was a major EO, and there's no indication at all that Joe Biden even knows that it was done in his name. So I think we've got some fraud and deceit. I think we've got impersonation of the president and criminal activity that needs to be investigated.
Yeah, and that should all be, like I mentioned, null and void. I mean, this should not, it's illegal. It's fraudulent. Yeah. So if the president didn't sign, it's an auto pen, all these, they have to go. They're like, boom, it's like it didn't happen. That's it.
100%. I mean, we all, back in the day when we were kids, may have tried to forge mom's signature on a failing math test, right? But that doesn't mean it was valid, right? It was fraud. And you get in trouble for the fraud, and then you still have to deal with the fact that you failed the math test. Well, the people who perpetrated the fraud of the auto pen have to be held to account, and they have to be punished and criminalized. But then the actual EO itself, there's still some restitution there because of the damage it did to this country.
It's outrageous. You just can't even believe this stuff. And like, we're all finding out about it now, subsequent to the fact of the election. I mean, the cover up is outrageous of what's transpired here. And we had, Biden, they were still putting him up to be president. Then we had the one that fell out of the coconut tree, Kamala after that. I mean, you can't make this up.
No. And the American people are so tired because, I mean, we're headed in a better direction. There's no doubt. But America still doesn't work really, really great. It's expensive. Trains don't work. Cities don't work. Airports are, I mean, Sean Duffy, God love him, he inherited a huge problem and he's trying his best to fix it. But we are in fixing mode. And I just hope that we can rally around the president and continue to believe like we are going to get there. But we were handed an awful situation, and we really were. Like the amount of damage done in the 4 years of the Biden administration is going to take at least 4 years to be undone. So we can't lose hope. We can't lose faith. We're headed in a good direction, but we're not going to get there in the immediate future. We're really not. And that's unfortunate for Americans.
It really is. But I love your intelligence, your passion, your dedication to this country, to the truth, putting the truth forward despite the lies that are perpetuated. It's very admirable. Never give up the fight. You are truly making a difference. And I certainly, as a patriotic American, appreciate it, Daniel.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thanks, Kimberly.
And thanks for always making time for the show.
Always great to be with your audience.
All right, you're the best. Daniel Turner, the one and only. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And my closing remarks just ahead, but first, free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to look and to back down. We've always believed in empowering independent voices, and to Rumble, it matters more than ever. We are excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. And it's more than a subscription, it's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. So why not join Rumble Premium today? For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using promo code KG10. So just visit rumble.com/premium/KG10 and you can claim your discount today. Again, that's rumble.com/premium/KG10. And in closing, we are making major strides to get this nation back on track and to make the world a more peaceful and a more safer place. To do that, we need bold, strong, and decisive leadership. And that is exactly what we're getting with President Trump. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Please be sure to download the Rumble app, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, like and share, and tell all your friends so they know exactly where to find us. And please also be sure to follow me across all platforms: X, Truth Social, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Stay tuned to Rumble for all the very latest breaking news coverage. And don't miss Don Jr.'s big show tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, in 1 hour from now. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'm looking forward to talking and seeing you all.